The cowboy waited for his mail-order bride, but an armed outlaw woman took her place. Red Mesa 7 had a sky the color of pale brass, like the sun had burned the blue away long ago. Wind pushed red dust across the flats in slow waves. The planet was quiet in a way Elias Cade understood. Quiet meant you could hear your own thoughts. Quiet meant you could hear trouble before it arrived. His ranch sat beyond the last cluster of prefab homes and water tanks that people called Copper Ridge Settlement. A few solar towers turned like stiff flowers in the distance. Fence lines made of metal posts and smart wire cut the land into neat squares, keeping the grazing herd drones from wandering into sinkholes or old mining pits. Elias leaned on the rail at the small landing pad outside the settlement. He wore a long coat that kept the dust off, a hat with a wide brim, and a calm face that fooled most people. Inside, he felt tight as a drawn string. Today was the day. The message had come 3 nights ago. A transport ship from the inner routes was scheduled to land at noon, bringing supplies, letters, and 1 passenger assigned to him through the Frontier Match program. The agency called it Companion Settlement Support. The people out here called it mail order. They didn't mean it kindly, but they didn't mean it cruelly either. It was just how things worked on the edge of space. Elias had signed up because he was tired of coming home to empty rooms, tired of eating alone at a table built for 2, tired of the way the wind sounded like voices when the house was silent. He wasn't looking for a fairy tale. He wasn't looking to buy a person. The agency didn't allow that, and neither did his own conscience. The program was a contract for travel, housing, and mutual choice. 2 people agreed to meet, talk, and decide if they wanted to build something together. If not, the agency arranged a safe return or a new placement. Elias had read every line. He had sat under a lamp at night, turning the digital pages until his eyes burned. He had signed because hope, even small hope, was better than nothing. Now the settlement gathered in a loose half-circle around the pad. The marshal stood with arms crossed, boots planted wide, the way men did when they wanted to look like the ground belonged to them. A few ranchers and miners watched with the curious patience of people who didn't get much entertainment. Elias kept his hands visible and his shoulders loose. He didn't want anyone to see how nervous he was. A thin line appeared in the sky. It grew quickly, becoming a ship that looked like a dark seed falling from a great height. Engines flared, dust lifted in a ring as the craft descended, landing with a heavy sigh of metal and heat. The hatch opened with a hiss. Elias' heart beat once hard. A figure stepped out. It was not the woman he expected from the profile photo the agency had sent. The profile had shown a smiling face, gentle eyes, and simple clothes. The figure descending the ramp now moved like someone who had spent years in bad places. She was tall, with a stance that said she had learned to keep balance on moving decks and rough ground. Her clothes were worn and practical. A hard vest sat over a dark shirt. She carried a bag slung across her shoulder and a case strapped to her back that looked too stiff to hold clothing. The biggest difference was the way her hands stayed close to her side, ready. She paused halfway down the ramp, eyes scanning the crowd, not frightened, measuring. Elias felt the mood change around him like a storm shifting direction. The marshal's jaw tightened. "Hold up," he called. "Who are you?" The woman came down the rest of the way at an even pace. She stopped at the bottom of the ramp, set her bag on the ground, and lifted her chin. "Mara Vale," she said. Her voice was calm, not loud, but it carried. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here because the person you're expecting didn't make it." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Elias took a step forward before he realized he was moving. "Didn't make it where?" he asked. He kept his tone steady like he was speaking to a skittish animal. Mara's eyes flicked to him. "Didn't board or did and got pulled off." "Depends who you ask." She looked past him toward the settlement's low buildings and the empty horizon. "I took her slot." The marshal moved closer, stopping a few paces away. "You stole a transport seat," he said. "That's a crime." "I didn't steal it for fun," Mara replied. "I used it to stay alive." 2 settlers shifted their feet. Someone muttered something about outlaws. Elias watched Mara's face. She didn't look proud. She looked tired. The marshal lifted a hand. "Any weapons on you?" Mara didn't flinch. "Yes." That answer made the marshal's hand drop closer to his own belt. The air grew sharp. Elias spoke quickly. "Marshal, this is frontier space. Half the folks here sleep with a tool in reach." He kept his eyes on Mara. "Are you planning to use them here?" "No," Mara said. "Not unless I'm forced to." The marshal's eyes narrowed. And who would force you? Mara hesitated. For the first time, something like worry crossed her expression. People who don't like loose ends, she said. People who paid to keep certain things quiet. That sounded like trouble in a suit rather than trouble in a coat. Elias knew both kinds. The marshal pointed at the case on her back. What's that? Mara's gaze stayed steady. My gear. That doesn't answer it. Mara exhaled slowly. It's not for hunting settlers, she said. It's for protecting myself. I'm not proud of it, but I won't stand here and pretend I'm harmless. The marshal turned slightly, as if to speak to someone behind him. Elias saw the moment before it turned into shouting and fear and a bad decision. Elias stepped forward until he was beside Mara's bag. He didn't touch it, but he stood close enough to show he wasn't afraid. I'm Elias Cade, he said, addressing Mara first. You're saying the person assigned to me is missing? Mara nodded once. That's right. And you took her place? Yes. Why? Elias asked. Mara's eyes softened just a little, as if she was surprised he asked the question like it mattered. Because I had one chance, she said, and because if I didn't leave, I wouldn't get another. Elias looked at the ship, then back at her. Are they following you? Mara didn't answer right away. She scanned the sky again the way someone checked corners without thinking. There's a good chance, she admitted. That made the settlement uneasy. No one wanted attention from bad people, especially not out here. Copper Ridge survived because it was small and forgettable. The marshal rubbed his chin, thinking. We could lock you up until we confirm your story, he said. Myra's posture changed, not aggressive but ready. I won't resist, she said quietly, but it won't help you. If they're coming, walls won't stop them. They'll just make it easier to corner everyone. Elias didn't like how true that sounded. He turned to the marshal. Let me take her to my ranch, he said. I've got space, cameras, perimeter alarms. I'll keep her under watch. If she's lying, you can come get her. If she's telling the truth, we'll have time to figure out what happened to the woman who was supposed to arrive. The marshal stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Elias, he said slowly, you don't know her. I don't, Elias admitted, but I know panic, and I know when someone's trying not to pull everyone into their mess. Mara's eyes stayed on Elias. Something in her expression shifted again, like she didn't understand kindness that didn't ask for payment. The marshal looked at the crowd, then at the ship crew, then back at Mara. Finally, he pointed a finger. You're not free, he told her. You're under settlement watch. You step out of line, I put you in a cell. Mara nodded. Fair. The marshal looked at Elias. And you, he said, if this goes wrong, you're going to regret it. Elias didn't argue, he just gave a small nod. Regret was something he already knew well. He didn't want to add a new kind to the list. They loaded Mara's bag onto Elias' rover. She climbed in without being asked, sitting where she could see the road and the sky at the same time. Elias took the driver's seat, hands steady on the controls. As they rolled out of Copper Ridge, the settlement shrank behind them, turning into a line of low shapes against the wide world. For several minutes, neither spoke. The rover hummed over packed dirt. Dust rose in a thin trail behind them. Elias finally broke the silence. You said her name? He asked. Mara glanced at him. The woman who was supposed to come here? Yes, Mara's jaw tightened. Lena Hart, she said. That's what her file said. Elias nodded slowly, letting the name settle. Do you know what happened to her? Mara stared forward. I know she was scared, she said. I know she didn't want to miss her chance, and I know someone with authority told her there was a problem with her documents. Elias felt a cold pinch in his gut. A setup, he murmured. Mara didn't disagree. I tried to help her, she said. But I had my own problem. I had a tracker on me. I had eyes watching. I made a choice. Elias kept driving. The ranch came into view, a low house, a barn for equipment, solar panels angled toward the sky and fence lights blinking in a steady pattern. Mara watched it carefully. You live alone out here? She asked. Yes, Elias said. Why? Elias didn't answer right away. He parked near the porch and cut the engine. The silence that followed was deep and wide. Because it used to feel safer, he said finally. Mara looked at him for a long moment. And now? She asked. Elias stepped out, dust crunching under his boots. He glanced at the horizon. A dark cloud of red sand was forming far away like a slow-moving wall. Now, he said, I'm not sure safe is the same thing as empty. Mara got out of the rover, keeping her bag close. She stood beside him, eyes on the growing dust storm. In that moment, Elias understood something simple and heavy. He had been waiting for a stranger to arrive and change his life. A stranger had arrived. Just not the way he expected. And somewhere beyond the red sky, something else was moving toward them, hidden inside the wind. Elias Ranch felt different with another person standing in it. The air inside the house carried a quiet tension, like a storm waiting beyond the hills. Mara stepped through the doorway slowly, her eyes moving across every corner, every window, every shadow. She noticed the small details, the way the chairs faced outward toward the plains, the old tools hanging neatly on the wall, the cooking pot left clean and ready for use. Elias watched her without staring. He understood caution. Frontier life taught people to measure every step. "You can put your bag there," he said, pointing to a bench near the wall. "Kitchen S to the left. Water tank runs clean." Mara nodded once. She set the bag down but did not open it. Instead, she moved toward the window and looked outside. The red dust storm he had seen earlier now stretched across the horizon like a rising wave. "You get storms like that often?" she asked. "Every few weeks," Elias replied. "Good for hiding tracks, bad for electronics." She turned slightly toward him. "That might work in our favor." Elias understood what she meant. If someone tracked her, the storm could hide them for a while. He walked to the stove and filled 2 cups with water. He handed one to her carefully, leaving enough distance so she wouldn't feel cornered. She accepted it with a quiet thank you. For a few minutes they stood in silence. The ranch creaked softly as the wind picked up outside. Finally, Elias spoke. "You said someone might follow you. What kind of people are we talking about?" Mara hesitated, as if deciding how much to reveal. "Not simple bounty hunters," she said. "Private contractors, organized, expensive equipment." Elias raised an eyebrow. "That's serious." "Yes." He leaned against the counter, thinking. "And you believe they'll come here?" "If they track the transport, yes," she answered. "If not, we might have time." Elias nodded slowly. Time was something frontier people never wasted. "Then we prepare," he said simply. Mara watched him with a curious expression. "You're not angry?" she asked. "About that I'm not the person you expected." Elias took a breath. "I won't pretend I'm not surprised," he admitted. "But anger won't solve anything. You needed help. I offered it." She studied him for a long moment, as if trying to understand something unfamiliar. Most people she had met expected payment for kindness. Elias did not seem to ask for anything. Outside, the wind began to howl, rattling the fence posts. Elias grabbed his coat. "Come on," he said. "We need to secure the outer lines before the storm hits." They stepped outside together. The sky had darkened, and dust moved in long red ribbons across the ground. Elias showed her the solar fence controls and the old defense turrets mounted near the barn. "You kept these from your ranger days," she said quietly. He paused. "You can tell." "You move like someone trained," she replied. Elias didn't deny it. "Used to patrol trade routes," he said. "Long time ago." Mara nodded. She didn't push further. Together they worked quickly. She climbed onto a ladder without hesitation, tightening loose panels while Elias checked sensors. Their movements became smooth, almost natural, like 2 people used to working side by side. When the first wave of dust hit, they rushed back inside. The storm swallowed the horizon completely, turning the world into a red blur. Inside the house, the lights flickered briefly but stayed on. Mara finally opened her bag. Elias noticed she moved carefully, revealing only what was necessary. Inside were tools, a compact scanner, and a weapon case. She glanced at him. "I'll keep it secured," she said. "I trust you," he replied simply. The words surprised her. She turned away slightly, hiding whatever emotion crossed her face. Hours passed while the storm raged outside. They ate a simple meal together, dried meat, bread, and hot soup Elias prepared without speaking much. The quiet felt comfortable rather than awkward. After dinner, Mara stood near the window again, watching the storm. "You live like this every day?" she asked. "Mostly," Elias said, "peaceful when nothing goes wrong. And when things go wrong," he gave a small smile, "then it gets interesting." She almost laughed at that. Later, as night settled, the storm began to weaken. The red sky cleared slowly, revealing distant stars. Mara's posture changed suddenly. She moved toward the table where her scanner rested and activated it. A soft beep filled the room. Elias saw her expression tighten. "What is it?" She turned the screen toward him. "Movement," she said. "3 signals approaching fast." Elias' calm face hardened. "Ships." "Small ones," she replied. "Fast and low altitude." He walked to the window and stared into the dark horizon. At first, he saw nothing. Then faint lights flickered in the distance. "Well," he said quietly, "guess we don't get much time after all." Mara picked up her weapon case but paused. "You don't have to stay," she said. This is my problem. Elias shook his head. They're coming to my land, he said. That makes it my problem too. She hesitated, then nodded. They moved quickly. Elias activated old defense systems hidden around the ranch. Small drones lifted from charging docks, scanning the perimeter. Lights blinked on along the fence line. Mara watched him with growing respect. You said you used to patrol, she said. You didn't say you were this prepared. Frontier rule, Elias answered. Always expect trouble. The approaching lights grew brighter. A deep hum filled the air as one of the ships descended lower, scanning the ground with a pale beam. Mara's jaw tightened. They found me. Elias crouched behind the window frame, watching carefully. How many? At least 3, she said. He nodded once. Then we make them think twice. The first ship hovered just beyond the fence line. A voice crackled through an external speaker. Mara Vale, it called. Your escape ends here. Step forward peacefully. Mara closed her eyes briefly, steadying herself. Elias glanced at her. You ready? She opened her eyes again, calm and sharp. Always. Outside, the storm dust still lingered in the air, turning the lights into glowing halos. The ranch stood alone against the dark plains, small but stubborn. Elias activated the outer speakers. You're trespassing, he said calmly. Turn around and leave. The voice laughed. You don't understand what you're dealing with, cowboy? Elias' eyes stayed steady. I understand enough. The ship's engines flared brighter and figures began to move inside. Mara tightened her grip on her gear, standing beside Elias instead of behind him. For the first time since arriving, she didn't look like someone running away. She looked like someone ready to fight for a place. And as the ships lowered toward the ranch, both of them knew that whatever happened next would change everything between them, turning strangers into partners bound by danger and trust. The night felt heavier as the ships hovered above Elias' ranch. Their engines pushed dust into spirals that glowed under pale lights. Elias stayed calm, watching through the reinforced window while Mara stood beside him, her breathing slow and controlled. The voice outside repeated again, louder this time. Mara Vale, last warning. Step forward peacefully. Elias muted the speaker and turned toward her. You know these people? He asked. Yes, she said quietly. They don't stop once they start. Then we don't let them start, Elias replied. He moved toward a panel on the wall and activated additional defense systems. Old Ranger technology hummed awake. Small sensor drones lifted silently into the air, creating a moving net around the ranch. Mara watched carefully. You really prepared for everything, she said. Elias gave a faint smile. Not everything, just enough. Outside, one of the ships lowered closer and a ramp opened. 3 figures stepped out wearing dark armor. Their movements were precise, confident, professionals. Mara's jaw tightened. They'll try to pressure first, she said. They want me alive. That gives us time, Elias replied. He activated floodlights, flooding the yard with bright white light. The sudden glare forced the approaching figures to slow. Turn back, Elias said through the speaker. You're not welcome here. One of the armored figures raised a hand. You're interfering with legal retrieval, the voice said. Stand aside. Mara laughed softly under her breath. They always say that. Elias lowered the volume again. What do they really want? He asked. Mara hesitated, then answered. I carry data, she said. Proof of illegal operations across frontier systems. If that information spreads, powerful people lose control. Elias nodded slowly. That explained their persistence. The armored figures advanced another step. A scanning beam swept across the ranch buildings. Elias tapped another control. The outer fence activated, sending a low electric pulse through the ground. The figures paused. They expected you to run, Elias said quietly. I did run, Mara replied, until now. The moment hung between them. Suddenly, a small drone darted toward the house, attempting to scan through the window. Elias reacted instantly, activating a signal jammer. The drone fell to the ground with a dull thud. The figures outside stopped moving. One raised a weapon, not firing but clearly threatening. Mara stepped forward slightly. They're losing patience. Good, Elias said. That means they're unsure. The silence stretched. Wind carried dust across the yard. The storm earlier had left the air thick, reducing visibility. Elias leaned closer to Mara. We don't need to defeat them, he said quietly. We only need to make this too costly. Mara nodded. She understood strategy. They moved together toward the back room where additional equipment waited. Elias handed her a compact communicator. What's this? She asked. Old Ranger transmitter, he said. Wideband signal. If we broadcast your data now, anyone listening in nearby sectors could receive it. Mara's eyes widened slightly. That would expose everything. That's the point, Elias replied. If the secret disappears, you stop being a target. She hesitated. That choice meant ending her running life forever. Outside, the voice returned, sharper now. Final warning. Mara took a slow breath and nodded. Let's do it. They connected her device to the transmitter, screens filled with coded lines. Elias worked calmly, fingers moving with practiced ease. Ready, he said. Mara pressed the transmit button. A burst of signal shot into space, carrying hidden truths across the frontier. Outside, the armored figures reacted immediately. One raised a weapon and fired at a sensor tower. Sparks flew. Elias activated defensive drones. Small machines rushed forward, forcing the attackers to retreat behind their ship. They're angry now, Mara said. Means it worked, Elias replied. Minutes later, one of the ships pulled back. Then another. Signals from distant systems began to respond, receiving the broadcast. The attackers realized their mission had failed. Slowly, one by one, the ships lifted into the sky and disappeared into the darkness. Silence returned to the ranch. Mara lowered her shoulders, tension leaving her body for the first time since arriving. Elias looked at the empty sky. Looks like you're done running, he said. She nodded slowly. Because you helped me stop. Part 4. Morning arrived gently over Red Mesa 7. The sky turned gold as sunlight spread across the plains. The ranch looked peaceful again, as if nothing had happened. Mara stood outside, breathing the cool air. For the first time in years, she didn't feel hunted. Elias walked toward her carrying 2 cups of hot coffee. He handed one to her without speaking. They won't come back, she said quietly. No, he agreed. Once the truth spreads, chasing you won't help them anymore. She looked toward the horizon. I spent so long thinking survival meant moving constantly, she said. I forgot what staying feels like. Elias nodded. Staying can be harder. They shared a quiet smile. Later that day, messages arrived from nearby systems. Authorities confirmed receiving the broadcast. Investigations had begun. Mara's name appeared cleared from several watch lists. The settlement marshal visited the ranch, looking impressed and slightly embarrassed. Seems you were telling the truth, he said to Mara. She nodded. The marshal turned to Elias. You always bring trouble, don't you? Elias smiled faintly. Only when it knocks. After the marshal left, life slowly returned to routine. They repaired damaged equipment, checked fences, and rode across the plains together. Working side by side felt natural, easy. Days turned into weeks. The matchmaking agency eventually contacted Elias again, apologizing for the situation. They offered to send another candidate if he still wanted one. Elias thought for a long moment before replying. No, he said simply. Mara overheard but didn't comment. One evening, as the sun set red across the sky, she spoke quietly. You were waiting for someone, she said. I wasn't who you expected. Elias looked at her. Maybe expectation isn't the same as destiny, he replied. She laughed softly. That sounds like something from an old story. Maybe, he said, but it feels true. She stared across the plains, watching grazing drones move slowly through the tall grass. I don't know what comes next, she admitted. You don't have to decide today, Elias said. Silence settled comfortably between them. The ranch no longer felt empty. Laughter came easier. Even the wind sounded softer. People in the settlement began telling stories about the night the armed outlaw arrived instead of a bride. Some called it fate, others called it luck. Elias simply called it life. As stars appeared above the frontier sky, Mara stood beside him on the porch. For the first time, she wasn't planning her next escape route. She was thinking about tomorrow. And on a quiet ranch at the edge of space, 2 strangers who met by accident began building something steady, not from expectation, but from trust, choice, and the courage to stay when leaving would have been easier.